Let's war rolling at the start. We here to bring the truth. Jar open this podcast. We breaking through the fake news. They try to silence us, but we will be subdued. We're bearded alpha males here to save the youth. Spitting fire on the mic with the bass Christian takes. Exposing the lies, keeping the demons at bay. We ain't afraid to speak up. We won't be swayed. Jar open this podcast where the truth is laid. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas dub, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. We ain't playing games, we're on a mission to awaken the masses with our intuition. Pulling out the corruption with no inhibition. Jar open this podcast, sparking a revolution. We're not afraid to stand tall in a world full of deceit. We're the voice of reason, bringing light to the street. Keeping it real, never missing a beat. Jar open this podcast where the truth meets the heat. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas dub, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. Jar open this podcast where the truth will never cease. Join us on the journey to bring back peace. We're rolling Atlas dub, fearless in our release. Jar open this podcast where the lies will decrease.
What's up? What's up? Oh, you know what?
Go.
I'm dark.
Your mic was on this time.
I was gonna say, at least I remember to unmute the mic after the song. Oh man.
One step at a time.
Yep. Let me adjust. Hold on a minute. I'm sitting off to the side. What am I doing? Thought I was prepared. Hey, what's up, Abigail?
Good.
Yeah. Abigail said, "Hey guys, excited to see another guest today." Yeah, we have another guest in store for you guys today. We'll introduce him as soon as he pops on. But in the meantime, thanks for being here. And I look orange. I'm looking like Trump. There we go. A little better. I didn't shave before
little
this
less
show.
orange.
You can see my stubble. I don't like it. What's up,
Glad to see
Chris?
what people are filling in too.
What's up, Chris? What's up, Lola Marble? Is that LOL a marble or Lola Marble? Curious.
Lol,
read it.
marble.
Lol.
I always say it. Do you say it like that when you see LOL?
Lol.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's pretty funny. Okay, yeah, we have our guest here. So yeah, let me add him in here. Actually, maybe give him another second to make sure he's all set up. Oh, that doesn't help. Oh, that's funny.
I saw that chat. I was like, what are you saying it to? And then I saw the chat and I was like, oh, that makes more sense now.
Right.
No,
Oh, it's your
try to get
birthday?
into it.
Today's your birthday?
Yeah, it's my birthday. Yeah, it's part of the reason why I gotta leave like right at 8.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Well, happy birthday. That's pretty.
Yeah, I
that's pretty
appreciate
cool.
it. I'm
Appreciate
old
you.
now.
Don't say that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and add our guest here. His name is Amol Randhawa. Hopefully, I got his name pronounced right.
He'll correct us.
Yeah. So that'll be great. Here, let me just add him in. Yeah, what's up,
Hey,
dude?
what's up, guys? How's it going?
Hey, what's
good.
up?
Can you hear us
Amol?
okay?
Yeah, Worrell, you were pretty spot on with that pronunciation.
Oh, sweet.
yeah, all good.
Yeah,
Thanks
man.
for having me on here today.
Yeah, no problem. Tell us a little bit about yourself, because we're gonna after you do that, we'll go ahead and get into what we're kind of.
Gotcha. So, hey, everybody. My name is Amol Randhawa. I'm a fourth-year med student, graduating in July. So, almost soon to be doctor, I guess. So, just maybe hopped on here, maybe get my 2 cents or whatever it's worth. But finishing up school, pretty much live in New York. Came back home for a little bit. So I'll just shed some light on some of the I guess you see every day, and
Right.
kind of what some people kind of don't take into consideration. Maybe what goes on a bit behind the scenes, and I just want to shout out everybody who's grinding. No matter what you're doing, industry, work, day to day, you got a goal. You're working, you're getting up, you're doing what you got to do. Oh man, God bless all of y'all.
Yeah, man, definitely. Well, it's
We
nice to have you
appreciate
here.
it.
We're gonna
I
get
know I
into.
haven't seen you on screen or anything for a long time.
Nah, dude, I don't. Not really, not
It's
really
been a minute.
on screen kind of guy.
No, you look good. You know, people who don't know, me and Amol met in college. So me and Amol have been friends for damn near a decade now at this point. It's been
Yeah,
a long
probably
time.
it's been a decade, I think now, 29. Yeah, god damn. It's
I
been a
know.
while.
Well, what was crazy was we had a discussion on our WhatsApp chat. I think that's what it's called, our WhatsApp chat.
Yeah,
Because I think you had tuned into one of the episodes where we talked about the shooter. And
yeah,
this is kind of stemming from everything that's kind of like even nonpartisan about our broken healthcare system. And I think in particularly, like you had a lot of strong takes regarding like all the different nuances in there. And so I think we'll just go ahead and get right into it. We'll start off with it. Um, I guess what's your leading point into like your biggest grief with what happened with like what got highlighted with the shooter and like what you saw about like the insurance, people's problem with like doctors, healthcare, and the overall situation?
yeah. So I think kind of what got me really tuned in, and you know, you it's actually funny, you've been saying it for a couple of years now. Like, you know, a lot of people are blind to a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that does control their day-to-day life, but we're told something else. You know, we're kind of told one thing and something happens behind the scenes, whether it's politics, you know, global policy, food markets, you know, anything, retail, everything. And this one kind of just hit it for me, which made me feel like, you know, that there's something that can be some light to be shed on, that not everything is what it seems. You know, we always go around and say we have the best healthcare system in the world. I think that there needs to be a distinction between system and providers and everybody who needs to be seen. I think we have the best providers in the world, hands down. Do I think we have the best system? No, absolutely not. You know, we make a lot of fun of Canada and the UK and Europe, and you know, system this, system that. You can't even see a doctor for months and months and months. I've been to Canada a lot. Like, you know, I have family there, and you know, you can easily say, yeah, it's hard to see specialists and this and that, but the people are taken care of, man. Like through their tax dollars, which are already high, they get chiropractors covered. You get your dietitians covered. You can get PT and OT covered. Basic checkups. You're not going to get a surprise bill for $1,000 because you needed a steroid injection from your local emergency room. You know, whether or not you knew you needed a steroid injection or not, but that provider knew. And so I think the biggest point that hit for me was, you know, we have it's a free market based economy. We have not free market, more like capitalistic, where we're told that in any industry that where there's a demand, you can have a lot of people offering you different supplies, and eventually we're going to get to the best rate, right? That's how kind of capitalism. I mean, you guys probably know more than I do. I'm just a guy who sits at his desk and studies all day, but essentially, like when you have multiple people supplying a good or service, competition should draw out the fairest outcome, correct?
Right.
And I think what hit for me was where this system has been in place into an industry that is an absolute necessity to human life. You know, healthcare is a necessity for human life to progress and live and be healthy every day. And capitalism did its job, like no doubt. It provided fantastic services and goods. You know, we have some of the best actual hospitals there is in the world. Who can actually get to those hospitals is a whole different game now. You know, we've made this industry that was a human necessity. In comes people who know that this can be taken advantage of by also giving the guise of, we will do this to provide the best service, which is capitalism. And I think we've reached a certain point now where the growth of a company that's aiding and providing the service is at the height of their priority, when the motto is, we're providing for the people. The companies only grow with increase in profits, correct? And making their shareholders money. And in this industry, making money means taking out profit from the healthcare industry, right? Correct.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm wrong. I think we've just gotten to a point where I don't think that capitalism is helping us. I think it's actually hurting us up to this point. And this point may have been 10 years ago. It could have been 15 years ago. But I think the tipping point for the people was now. Everybody's just sick of this. And like being a future provider, like it sucks to see that we don't have our own industry in our own control. We cannot own hospitals. This was put into play in 2010 by the Affordable Care Act. Physicians cannot own hospitals anymore. You cannot expand physician-owned hospitals that were pre-existing from 2010. It's illegal to. And why can lawyers, okay, it's illegal for anybody who's not a lawyer to own a law firm. Makes sense.
Right.
Why is that not in play in healthcare? And I'm not saying it just for physicians. Put people in charge here that have some experience working with those patients.
Yeah. Well, to touch on, I think one of the first things is, obviously I think when you structure a system that's meant to provide like the best care possible for people, but the incentive of that system is actually incentivized by cost saving mechanisms more so than it is actually providing the best care to every individual who comes in, there's obviously a large conflict of interest there. And so I think we're in a point where you would say, and I would say even too, the large people at the top, right? The people who kind of like gatekeep a lot of these policies argue that like that's the best way. So it's kind of like hands up, like we can't really do anything. Otherwise, they go to extremes like with Canada, right? They move to, well, if we don't have the system we have in place, we're going to see something like what we have in Canada, where it's like there was a recent story about 6-month wait time for a certain procedure. There was another guy who he didn't want to wait like a couple hours and he had like an aneurysm, ended up like passing away because he just didn't want to bother with the wait. And that's all, like everything's structured completely differently. And so I guess we're kind of at a point, and I agree too, like I think our healthcare system is broken in a lot of ways. We're at tipping points where people just outright don't end up getting health coverage. A lot of this ends up falling back on the government anyways. Medicare and Medicaid take on a lot of the burden too, because when people go to get healthcare, they're like, 18, 19, 20, and they look at it and it's like, dude, $318 a month for myself. It's like, that's more than my car payment. That's more than like my car insurance. That's more than my phone bill. It's like, I can't take on this cost, especially in the economy we're in right now. People just can't take on these costs. And so I would only add one caveat where I think it's maybe not even just like a blanket statement on capitalism alone. I think this is where the kind of like corporatocracy comes in, where you have like corporations who actually work hand in hand with the government. And the government kind of like helps people out. Certain lobbyists kind of back different groups. And there's this kind of like incestuous relationship there between government and corporations that kind of gatekeep everything else. And then you have the insurance providers too, which is another like stack on top of it. So not only do like doctors and physicians have to operate within the realm of like what the government is regulating, they also then have to operate within the insurance company, which has more freedom to regulate, because the insurance company, obviously, they want to be attached to these insurance companies, because if you're not on the preferred provider list of an insurance company, your chance of getting business like just drops down. And so there's just like two, and I made this my thumbnail too, but there's like two massive hands like on our healthcare system.
Yeah.
And so I guess I would ask you then, what do you think would be one of the first ways or all ways where we could start to make improvements on that?
I've thought about this, and when we start to bring up regulations, then we get into a gray area where we could be called out for, is this socialism? Do we make it really just fair game for everybody? Is that what the US kind of stands for? How do we regulate them? Are we allowed to put caps on capitalism? No pun intended. Is that even capitalism now? Right? Like if that's what we believe in, then it's worked for almost every other industry in this nation.
But I can tell you just to interrupt, because that's a great point. I've always believed that one of the truest, best forms of like capitalism is the fact that somebody could sell another person like a $900 pair of tennis shoes, and both people can walk away happy. I mean, that's capitalism at its finest. No, the shoes probably aren't worth $900 in materials and labor and things like that. But if both people are satisfied with the transaction, then, like I said, once again, it's kind of capitalism at its finest. But I like what you said there, that point that can you put a cap on capitalism when it comes to healthcare? Because that's a fair conundrum to address and, you know, kind of discuss and have in the open for sure. So I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but
No,
I just
you're good. No, 100% exactly like that. And I see a comment here by Jay Bowen. And are there too many middlemen? Why is it so expensive? That's exactly what's happening. You know, people saw an industry that is a basic human necessity. Let's interject. Let's become the middlemen. Let's get our profit out of it. Turn it over to the people. Make the company say they're making a great profit. Hey, we're doing great. Who's a loser at the end of the day? The person who gets a bill in the mail 3 months later for something that shouldn't be as much as it is. I'm telling you, being on the inside, like I don't know cost of everything, but what it costs to do day-to-day things, it's not what your bill says. It's not absolutely not what your bill says.
Right.
And so the problem is we have a lot of middlemen. And then one other point that I want to make is, you know, as physicians, we're held to an oath. You have to have the patient's best interest in mind. There can be no maleficence and no negligence, and everything has to be put on the table. Yeah. Pros and cons, you know, cost of something, not an actual number, but like, hey, like we can tell if we see patients who may be struggling, you know, like they need to be connected to social services. We cannot pump those expensive routes towards them. That's immoral. So we are federally obliged to have our morals in check. Okay. And we could be sued for it any minute. And like for the people, please, if you have been neglected medically, take care of it. Like, go ask somebody. You'll get your analysis. You can go after those people. Okay. We can't do that to the insurance companies. There's no regulation. Nobody's telling them every day, like, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that, because they own the industry. So how are the people that they're using to provide the services that they're going to be covering, why are they regulated and not the actual industry? That's my issue, I think. Not one issue, or one of the issues is.
Right. Well, it's almost like the insurance companies kind of regulate the cost of the healthcare too at the same time.
Yeah. So the way that kind of works is, you know, they'll know, you know, what on average some certain things cost the hospitals. Hospitals negotiate in their contracts with insurance companies what's covered, if it's a percentage, if it's a set amount. And then based off that amount, hospitals have to cover their own costs. So they have to adjust that cost. Yeah. They'll either inflate it. Okay. If the insurance company says we're covering a set amount, they'll try to bring that cost down to make the amount of money that actual hospital has to pay out of pocket the lowest it can be.
Yeah.
And when that happens, then you have middlemen, because in order to deliver all these services, we need multiple industries to communicate with each other. By multiple, I mean the pharmaceutical companies, you know, the insurance companies, the hospitals, the transport, like all that stuff falls under hospital costs, sure. But when we have an insurance company that tells a hospital what they will and will not cover, it puts another industry now in the position of, okay, now we have to inflate something to make sure we get back everything that we need. And that started from the fact with the insurance company saying we're only going to cover this set amount.
Right. Or we're only going to cover this, and we're only going to pay this amount for this particular thing. And you have to actually go within network. If you go out of the network, then you're kind of on your own or whatever.
Because those contracts now, if they're out of network, they're not negotiated. The hospital can fully demand, we want this full payment. Now the insurance company says, hey, you knew better. It was out of coverage, out of network. You have to pay it all on your own. Now that little cost that the hospital would either inflate whatever to make sure they get their costs back from the insurance company, now that fully falls on the patient if you're out of network.
Yeah, that's crazy. But it's so many layers to it. I didn't even think about the pharmaceutical side of it, which is crazy because that's all we see on TV is pharmaceutical commercials. But I didn't even, like, we're sitting here talking about this, and I'm wondering, like, how much is there of a distinction is there between, like, the insurance companies from the healthcare, like, provider itself. You know, it's almost kind of one and the same, but it's not really, but they go hand in hand. So you almost kind of like have to take one with the other, unless you're the outlier. We had a question here from Abigail Shepard. Do you think that making a universal healthcare system will lead to specialists no longer being incentivized to be better at their practice, especially if there's no monetary incentives then?
I mean, I read that, and Abigail, that's a good point, because that is an issue. If you have somebody who's been so specific and dedicated to their craft and gotten so specialized. And then, all that hard work, if we make everything level, where's the incentive to want to push further if everybody is still at the same level? I think there's an important distinction that needs to be made there also between, like, if we do a universal healthcare system, does that entail compensation differences for the people who are practicing? That's something that also needs to be addressed. People who put their time and effort into the craft for like 10 plus years, take, for example, neurosurgery. You get out of med school, you do a surgery residency for 4 years. Then you have to do a fellowship for neurosurgery for 4 more years. Then on top of that, you can't act, and then you have to do a neurology on top of that for 2 more years. We're already looking at 10 after the fact. You're 20, 26, yeah. So you're like 36. So if you see a 45-year-old neurologist, man, he's fresh. So it's kind of like, I understand that. So I think that universal healthcare system would solve everything? No, I don't think so. I think if we just go straight from where we're at, straight to universal, it's going to be a shit show, I think.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. I would have to think more about it, but there needs to be, I think there just needs to be a cap to capitalism at some point. But then it becomes an issue of like, is that what America stands for?
Does it? Yeah, right. Exactly. Is that, and then does it like become some type of like union where then you get like tenure, like kind of thinking on like the same level as like a teacher or something, then you get tenure, but then you get like a higher rate of pay and once you get like so far graduated into the system, and reward for funny. Longevity, not necessarily for doing like a better job. So I don't know.
It's funny that you bring it up. I've been seeing a lot in the news, like, salaries this, salaries that. It's so high. It's so like, I understand it coming from the average person working a job. They look at the numbers and they're like, damn, they make a lot of money. Okay, we can't. But you should see the numbers that are the negatives that need to be taken out to do this. Like, on my head, I'll say openly, I have about 250,000 out right now.
Yeah.
And probably about another maybe like 75 for till next year. 325 down. That's some more. I took out a mortgage on a gamble for myself.
Yeah.
Right.
So unless we address that first, the cost of the mortgage to take out to get to the position of what you potentially want to do, then I think that like calling out at this being the reason of high healthcare is kind of just ignorant a bit. Mm-hmm. Where like you should maybe let's look into other things. There's a lot of middlemen.
Yeah.
That are just ripping everybody off, and a lot of it comes down to pharmacies, like the drug producers. There's a thing as pharmacy benefit managers. People won't even know what they are, but they negotiate contracts with insurance companies on behalf of the drug producer. They figure out the cost that the insurance companies actually charge the hospitals and the patients for the drug, and then what they actually buy for, and then they'll make up their own value, pocket the difference.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I think that like stands out to me is doctors make good money, right? It's even in the current system we have, they make solid money. But then you look at the amount of money that like the CEO of insurance companies makes, and he's like a multi-hundred millionaire. And like we were talking even off air, these are guys who didn't go to school for being a doctor, but they're the ones that also are regulating the field. So not only are they're profiteering off of it, but they're non-experts regulating the experts in the field who are practicing when they don't practice.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily have the skin in the game either, as far as like what you're talking about with your taking out a mortgage investment on yourself.
Well, yeah, and I think he's right about that too. If say someone like Amol has to take out, anywhere from like $200,000 to $400,000 to $500,000 to go to school to be a doctor, but then you want to turn the system into like a level field where it's like doctors only get paid like 60 to 80K a year. Well, it's like, dude, that's going to take a lifetime to pull out of, and the amount of work that goes into having to be a doctor, the amount of studying that's going to be a doctor, it becomes a job that like nobody will want to do.
Mhm.
It becomes a position where it's like, we can't, like, I refuse to do that. That's too much
Yep.
work. And like, I'm not like, and you take on all the liabilities, right? For 80K a year, you can get sued if you made a mistake or something along those lines as well. There's way too much that could be a liability on that end. So then it begs the question then, how do you get the money to out of the insurance company's hands back into the hospital and then have that trickle down back into the patient so costs remain low for the patient so the doctors don't have to charge as much? And I think that has to go again with like government regulation, right? Like requiring people that they need to have insurance. Well, we tried that. I imagine this is going to be a lot worse if we had tried that, and enforced, actually forcing everyone to have insurance. But you could also look at it from the aspect of if everyone's paying into insurance, maybe the cost would generally be lower as well. But I think the point stands there too. There's so many issues with this, right? With the overall system, the entire system's like bleeding out at different points, but there's multi-millionaires walking away from the table when me and you, everyone here probably knows somebody who like struggled to pay a medical bill, or if something were to happen of great risk, like their life would be ever changed by that because they'd be paying down those medical bills if something like that tragically happened. And then you're looking at like what, $200,000 surgery if you have some kind of really grotesque or tragic accident. I know. So I guess the direction to go from there, you say cap on capitalism. I think it would actually bear the point that like there are certain industries where profit incentive makes sense. And I think there are other industries where it becomes a question of, well, if the profit interest is at the expense of the consumer on a moral high ground, like a moral standard, and like what you had said earlier, where, all the physicians have to swear an oath, they have this moral code they have to abide by, but the insurance companies, like, where is their moral code? Like, where's their moral code that like, we're not going to charge these exuberant amount of prices for these things when we can handle them at this level? And you look at the multi-million dollars, like there's multiple people in the field, and there's all these kind of scandals that happen, even the one recently that led to like the CEO being assassinated in broad daylight. It's something where I think we're on the tipping scale of, where I think it's nonpartisan too. Like people on both sides of the aisle can agree to it. They see it. And it's a lot of misdirected kind of anger too. Cause like what you started this show off saying, people are blind to like the underlying issues. They see the massive hospital bill and they're like, dude, these quacks are charging me this much for ibuprofen. Like, this is ridiculous. I was there for like 2 hours, but not understanding that like they suffer an exuberant amount of negative costs. Things go to collections, people don't pay them. And so there's all these things that kind of add into this. That's what's the point of having the regulation if it just makes everything so much worse?
And the thing is that person has every right to be mad looking at that bill. They have every right to be mad. And it comes, the issue comes up is who is inflating this cost. And it just happens to be the middlemen and the insurance companies trying to turn a profit, cover their debts with people who aren't paying. Pharmacy benefit managers making a buck in between because they figure out how much the actual insurance companies are buying the drugs for, how much they're charging. They'll super inflate beforehand. Then they'll pocket the difference. That gets turned on to the patient. The cost goes up. So we're just inflating a dollar amount because people are trying to pull a buck out of it, out of every service that needs to be provided. And, going back to the point of cap on capitalism, what does that mean? Do we just, I mean, it's just an idea out there, but like, should we make it a thing that if you're a insurance company or something like that, you can't be publicly traded? You can be a corporation. Nothing's stopping you from entering capitalism. But should we just not let them publicly trade them? Because then the interest of the shareholder gets removed. Once we remove the interest of the shareholder.
Right? There's a legal obligation for them CEOs to protect the value of the shareholders. So I mean, I
think that might be a solution. That could be a potential solution. We should make it illegal for an insurance company to be publicly traded.
Because if you have a fiduciary duty, that fiduciary duty is to the shareholders, and it's to make sure the company stays profitable and holds and retains value.
Also grows.
And grows too. And so if all of that revolves at the cost of the entire industry they're regulating, then I think that bears the question of like, there needs to be something that's adjusted there, because fiduciary duty and in the best interest of the patient are never going to line up.
Two separate things. Two separate
things. Entirely
unless all your shareholders happen to be your patients. That's the only other way.
Right.
Well,
Like
I think
you,
that's a good
you
system
sign
too.
up, then you get like 10 shares with your
Yeah,
policy or something.
like unless
I don't know. That
it's
wouldn't
either
really
that way or don't publicly trade. You know,
Yeah.
and it also comes down to, you know, these companies are allowed to just tell people what they want to say and what they want them to do, and that's it. That's the word. That's it. Because who's telling them no? Nobody. They're making up these rules themselves. They want to say, oh, we'll cover this for somebody with this comorbidity over this certain age. We'll cover this, we'll cover that, but we won't cover this or cover that for somebody else in a different situation. Now you're running into an issue of like, okay, if I try to fight that back and you said no to me, but you said yes to somebody else, you could not respond to me for like 2 months for all you care. Who am I going to go to if you don't respond? Nobody. There's nobody who's going to talk to you on my behalf except for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I, as a patient, I don't have the money to legally fight you. Are you kidding me?
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So like, it's a thing of
make-
like the people they're using to drive their profits are providers, and they're able to tell providers yes or no to what they can and cannot cover for the patients that those providers are seeing. What does the provider just turns to the patient with an open blank face, like, hey, I'm sorry, like they won't cover it. We feel bad. That breaks our code of conduct.
Right. And then when it comes to even collecting, like, this goes a little bit out of like the healthcare realm, but it's still dealing with like these same insurance companies that are selling, you know, you car insurance and health insurance. But like, they would rather pay an attorney's fees to try to prevent having to pay out somebody's policy. And then that forces the patient or whoever, the payer, the holder of the policy, to then share, if they win, a percentage of what they get with an attorney that they had to hire to represent them. So lots of money are going to the attorneys on top of all this. And the craziest thing about it is all the liability falls on the care provider, because if somebody, back to the health thing, if somebody chooses not to pay, then the insurance company just cancels your policy and then they're done with it. But the people that did the work, they went in and did a surgery or whatever, then they have to basically eat that cost, to eat that loss or whatever. So it seems like all the liability as far as people walking away and not paying are falling on the provider. And then when it comes to like the middlemen, like you say, they basically they just get to walk away, and now you're not covered with your policy. And now they didn't take a loss. They just don't cover you for next month if you don't pay.
And then they find another sheep and they do the same thing, and the cycle repeats itself.
Yeah. And so we had the super chat from Angry Yeti. I didn't want to let it float too much longer, but he said our healthcare system isn't the issue. It's the rampant conflicts of interest and monopoly violations that our so-called representatives do nothing about.
100%.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Angry Yeti. That's awesome.
And
A lot of that money
like
to them.
going back to the monopoly thing, it's interesting. I read a little bit into it, but that shareholder meeting for United Healthcare that was supposed to happen in New York, or did or didn't, they were in the process of buying out 1 to 2 other smaller insurance companies, and they were also going to address their data breach, the security data, the data leak that they had. I forgot if it was Palo Alto. I don't know who the company was that was covering them for their cybersecurity, but they had a security breach. CEOs were dumping shares before announcing it to the public, because legally they have 2 weeks to announce a security breach before they have to tell the public, before an SEC violation. So they pumped and dumped shares before they announced it. They bought them back at a lower price after announcing it. You look at Nancy Pelosi's records too. She did the same thing 2 days after these guys were dumping theirs. And then they bought them back at lower prices. So these guys are just gangsters, like in a bad way. They're buying up these other insurance companies. They're making it so that there's only like 4 or 5 major players. Only a couple of them can actually afford to take the losses. And once other people have smaller insurance companies that aren't staying afloat because people don't want to pay the bills, what do? They're going to have to sell to these guys. They have no other option. And eventually we're just going to have 1 or 2 insurance companies that are going to be able to provide insurance for us as a general public. And what does that mean? A monopoly is usually never good for anybody who's not on that board of that monopoly.
Right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say real quick, Anchorietti said he had to dip out and go do some adulting. So I just wanted to say, man, appreciate you for the super chat. Love talking to you in Discord and everything like that. So something we kind of skipped in the intros. We do have a Discord. The link is in the description if you guys want to join the family and become a little bit more involved in the conversations and stuff like that. But yeah, man, have a good night. Appreciate you for being here, bud.
Yeah.
Sorry about
Peace
that.
out, brother.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I actually I shared something with you, World, to present on the screen, and this actually kind of picks up again talking about kind of like these arbitrary decisions that insurance companies make. I think this one hit the news and people were pretty kind of confused, especially because this happened. I mean, days before the shooting happened, if not like a day before the shooting happened. And so this was their decision, and now they're saying they reversed their decision. But initially they had announced they were going to put a cap on anesthesia. They would only pay for a certain amount of time, and then anything over that would be out of pocket. And then for what reason, right? Like there's a lot of reasons why you would end up needing to go overtime, right? In case like doctors needed to take extra time for procedures. So it was like an arbitrary cap on surgery, finding another way to make patients pay for something that the insurance coverage that they already had would no longer be valid for, or finding, kind of like, and it's ubiquitous at this point, all of these different ways in which the insurance company can charge you more for something that like they should already be covering.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes in line with United Healthcare, which United Healthcare had, what was it? It was like they were sitting at like 31%. Amol, you might know better than me. It was like 31% of denying claims, and the rest of the industry.
Yeah, they had the highest denial rate in the last couple of years at 33%. I think the closest thing that followed was 24%. So still pretty big, but that's a big gap. And
yeah, they had like a massive disparity.
I mean, that brings up a whole nother point. But we'll touch that in a bit. But yeah, going to this, how much control does a person who's performing surgery have if someone bleeds, or if there is some control, you're careful. But if someone all of a sudden their blood pressure starts dropping, we don't know if they're having a reaction to something, if they're not perfusing certain organs for a certain amount of point, then they're not just going to cut it short. Because like there's not going to be an alarm that goes off in the OR like we sorry, time over, after this insurance doesn't cover, let's stop. That is against the oath. So this is again just preying on the fact they are preying on the fact that whatever happens has to happen, but we're only going to cover to a certain point. But these guys can't stop because they're morally and legally obligated to continue.
Yeah, well, one thing I would like to know, especially as it's like I'm not an expert by any means, would be thinking like how many of these surgeries that do take anesthesia do end up going over an hour, and like what would the percentage breakdown be?
That's a great question. I don't have an answer for you, but like in just what I've witnessed, being in surgery for a couple months just recently, actually is pretty commonly like maybe like twice a day, maybe in 2 or 3 times between like maybe the 12 or 15 surgeries I saw every day, would be like, they were over by like 30 minutes or 20 minutes or 40 minutes. I've seen a couple that ended up going on for an hour and a half extra long because, some access to certain organs was limited based on the patient's body habitus, based on other past diseases they've had, other past surgeries they've had. There could be adhesions inside, things that you can't control. You can't find some of these things on imaging and scans. And we typically don't, there's a range of time that's planned for these surgeries. It's not an exact time. It's plus or minus 30 minutes sometimes, and sometimes that can be a little bit longer. Sometimes it can be a little bit less. Most surgeries that happen under general anesthesia, unless somebody specifically says, hey, I'm getting my appendix out, I don't want surgery. I don't know who would ever do that, but you have every right to refuse anesthesia if you don't want it.
Well, and I also thought this is like a leverage mechanism too. Maybe it's not like you'd like that, but you're also thinking like, say you go in and you're looking up your research and you're like, well, I'm gonna need to get my tonsils taken out. It's only supposed to take like 35, 40 minutes. So I shouldn't have to get charged extra on my insurance for going over. But then say you wake up and then you see this charge now from the bill that was like you had to go like an hour and a half. And it was like, so now you have to pay for 30 minutes of anesthesia out of pocket. And I think anybody who knows, anesthesia is like a separate kind of hospital bill. It's also like one of the bigger hospital bills you'll get is the anesthesia one based on like the application and the liabilities that go into it. And so imagine now you're sitting there looking at the doctor and being like, is my doctor an idiot? Like, what took him so long?
Yeah.
Now I got to pay all this extra money out. Like, why did my doctor, and you like, what's the chance that you're just going to listen to your doctor and be like, oh yeah, like I had a big throat, or like I had this like weird gap or something. That's like, is he just making this up so like he could get more out of me? And it's like, so now like you build all these kind of like distrust levels where where it's already really hard to like to trust the healthcare system and doctors after 2020 and everything COVID related and all the information that was conflicting there. And then now all of a sudden we have even more happening, right? Not going to pay like what arbitrary time limits on stuff. And so I just think the overall thing's just a bad look, and I don't see an end in sight. I see things just like getting worse. And then to me, and I even said this on air like a couple of days ago when we had covered the Luigi Mangione, where it was like, I don't condone what he did. I think that was probably the worst way to go about it. But I still think like his action of doing so has now highlighted this to a degree and put it in the news cycle where it's like people are going to start talking a bit more of like, should healthcare be revised? And not that he did it in a good manner or should be condoned, like killing somebody. But I think that there does need to be attention drawn to this. And it's probably maybe one of my more kind of lefty positions out of anything I have, which is like, I do view the current way healthcare system is in capitalism. I don't view them to be compatible. And I think a lot of these things kind of play into that too. And if you can't trust your doctor, I mean, like, then who can you really trust, right? That's like supposed to be the one person you have in your community outside of your family, right? That's like one of your go-tos. So you're like, yeah, doc, thanks for patching me up. I appreciate it. And if you don't have that, then it's a telltale sign on how your community and social dynamic we have is kind of failing.
Yeah, and going like back to this issue, you know, where we'll charge you anesthesia over a certain amount of time. Well, why would they not just negotiate this with the drug producers? You know, why are you guys charging the hospitals and these people who need to use the anesthesia for the procedure so much to use it, but then the cost gets turned on to the patient then? And then who's the evil guy though? The person using it and doing the procedure, even though they're not the ones supplying the actual product of the anesthesia drug. You know, anesthesia, the drug itself is so expensive. Why is it expensive? There's patents on it still. We have the US law for drug patents for over a certain amount of time. They start making newer anesthetic drugs. Oh, it has better potency, it has better efficacy, and that's great for the patient. But as soon as a newer drug with a slight tweak in a molecule comes out, that renews their patent license. So then they can just still keep charging whatever they want to charge. And then instead of combating that with the drug producers themselves, Anthem decided it was a great idea to just put that on the patient. Because at the end of the day, if they go about and talk to the drug producer of like, hey, we need to reduce these costs, you're messing with their money. And you're messing with their middlemen, those pharmacy benefit managers.
Right.
And then if you reduce the drug costs, then you're removing a whole industry of middlemen negotiators.
Well, you take this to Pfizer, right? You know, there's like other ones, right? Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Moderna. I'm probably forgetting one other large ones too.
Cigna.
And it's clear that there is these huge, what's the right word? Like just like ill relationships, right? Like how does a company go like Pfizer and say, here's all this stuff about this procedure, right? And we need you to seal. We need the government to seal documents relating to our safety testing of such drug for 75 years.
Yeah.
And it's like that's like we're doing things in people's best interest. That speaks to like the complete opposite of that. And so I think there's, again, like we said it like multiple times now, like the middlemen, but the government, like it's not even government regulation, but it's like the government benefit from that. And that kind of revolving door, right? So the guys who are on maybe those smaller courts who like approve this stuff, next thing you know, they're working for United Healthcare. They have a job as like the CFO or like at some high ranking position at these insurance companies. So there's this revolving door of is like, you help me, I help you. And then everybody who suffers is like all at the bottom, who's having to pay for the base costs of whatever product they're purchasing.
And that's a great point. You know, you have these insurance companies that can just be like, hey, you know, come work for me. And anybody with a monetary mindset will gladly be like, hey, I'm going to make $100,000 more working for you guys doing the same thing. but now I just have to go against somebody else. Yeah, 100%. I'm going to work like, like not me, but like, like in general, somebody if for their own benefit, be like, I want more to make more money. I want to live a better life. And this brings up a great point of like, I see, another person commented like clashing and like, are they always in fights with each other? Are like hospitals, insurance companies in cahoots with each other? Yeah, they can be, but I'm not defending hospitals by any means because I think hospitals are to blame too. Why you look at individual hospitals, CEOs and admin salaries also. Let's go on a sidetrack away from the insurance companies by themselves also. Why are these hospital admins making multi-million dollars a year? I understand it's a tough job. You gotta manage a whole system. For $12 million a year, look at the Cleveland Clinic CEO's salary. Look at any other major hospital, like university hospitals, public health systems, CEO salaries, and their admin salaries. The amount of cost to run a hospital, physician salaries are only like I think 18% of the actual cost to run the hospital, 18 to 25%. And you should see the charts for how much the admin salaries are a major portion of the healthcare costs. And I just find it really interesting that like people who are on admin and everything like that, all those positions, I don't know, rough estimate, 75, 80% of them probably never seen a patient in their life. They're probably not even ever qualified to do so. And, we have these people making decisions for the people when they've never even addressed or even talked to a person about what their needs are. They don't even know how to fix the actual problem of what's wrong with the person. Yet they're able to coordinate and control who should get what care and for how much and for what costs of different things should be. Yeah, you need to have a business mindset to run a hospital. You can't just have full science mindset as a physician just running this hospital and any care system. But like you get past a point of where it then becomes greed. And you're just trying to spin it off of like, I'm doing a great job. I have to control this big healthcare system. I'm doing all this work, just compensate myself, like this is what it costs to like have this kind of lifestyle, run this and do that, do this. And it's just excuses at the end of the day. And nonprofit hospitals are just nonprofit because the book shows zero at the end of the day. How they show zero, we don't know. You could have an $8 million surplus and just hand out bonuses at the end of the year. Call it zero, nonprofit. There you go, nonprofit.
Wow.
Yeah, many disincentives there. And to your knowledge, like, do these hospital admins, like CEOs, the owners, do they like swear by an oath or a moral code to give patients best care? Are they held to the same doctors or same standards that like physicians are?
Yeah, sorry. Could you go ahead and repeat that? Sorry.
So like for like the hospital admin, right? Like the people who own the hospital, the ones who tell the doctors what to do, are they held to the same kind of oath and like standards that like doctors are?
If they're not seeing patients, what oath?
Huh.
Right.
So I was wondering about that because they almost can separate themselves into like just looking at numbers from like they look at numbers, even though the numbers all represent individual people, and they can actually like separate that in their mind and just kind of lose sight of the fact that every single one of those numbers is an actual person. Interesting kind of concept. It takes a special kind of person to actually be able to do that, especially in the healthcare system. You almost would have an obligation or some type of like oath or promise or whatever to like make sure that you don't just see the numbers and you see the people. I have a comment from TNT Cycles. I don't care whatsoever about this, to be honest. Yeah, I get what you're saying because he said Americans are so fat they deserve to not have surgeries paid for. That is another factor that's also important just to bring up when it comes to American healthcare. I mean, promoting good health, and that's kind of what's going on with RFK Jr. and his whole MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again, is the preventative of needing the hospital in the first place. So, I mean, I don't disagree with you as far as that goes. I mean, if we could clean up some of the poisons from our food and, promote healthier gym class in school. Like it's funny because you see like these old videos of like kids in gym and every young man looks, like an athlete themselves. They're all doing push-ups, pull-ups, climbing ropes and stuff like that. And there's like, it looks like it's the majority of the individuals. So I mean, it starts when you're young and promoting good health. And unfortunately, that's kind of what we've graduated into as a society. Is it's more fun to sit around and play games. You can still socialize with all of your friends online, playing games from your house, eating candy bars and drinking pop the whole day. Which is obviously eating as much sugar as they can is a recipe to be fat and unhealthy. And then and it's kind of part of the greater problem, which is, in my opinion, these pharmaceutical companies, I won't say the doctors, but a lot of these, powers that be, they want us to be unhealthy and reliant. I mean, you even see it when it comes to like, the willingness to trans a young person. They become a patient for life. And it's kind of about creating patients for life as a part of their business motto. And so,
I was just about to say that. Don't be surprised if in 15, 25, whatever amount of time we find out to know that a lot of these insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies were actually monetarily backing candidates and regulations and laws that would allow them to keep pumping these kind of foods. It's in their best interest to make sure that we stay busy in their system.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but they sell you the poison and then they treat you for it.
And
there's like a macro problem there.
Yeah, and also going back to these companies saying, this is it, this is the final word, this is the final say. They choose what they want to cover, what they don't want to cover. They have algorithms, and sure, we can say, not all doctors. There's a lot of physicians that are equally as twisted, and they work for these companies. That's the problem, is that they work for these insurance companies as physicians because they can't work anywhere else. They're considered MDs, DOs, but they're actually not legally allowed to practice in other states because they never could pass the qualifying exams. Now they're employees of these insurance companies, and they're the ones, the insurance companies, that are using to say like, hey, our providers deemed it unnecessary. Our providers don't think so. If you look at it on paper, it's a patient's MD or doctor versus an insurance company's doctor or MD fighting with each other, saying, hey, I need this covered for this person. Them saying, hey, no, there's a different option that's cheaper. We can't cover this and that. You have to follow these rules, this and that. When in fact, these guys right here, these insurance company physicians, probably haven't seen a patient in their life of their day.
Well, I think that Sock is bringing up a great point, something I wanted to move to here, where he says, my wife's workplace is in a huge fight with Anthem right now. They want to pay them less for every service. Now they're pulling the hospital out of their network. And that's something we also talked about off air, which is if a hospital continually, whether it's a specialist hospital, whatever kind of practice it is, wants to do things their way, and they start doing things a lot more, being like, no, we're going to do this instead. We're not going to do what these insurance companies want to do. Well, the next thing you know, they're not attached to an HMO. They're not attached to anybody's kind of preferred network. And now it's like all of their ability to kind of get patients is almost gone, unless people come to them through their own accord. Because if you're not involved and you're not inside one of these networks, well, then you're not going to get people who are getting sent to you. The insurance companies will just be like, no, you can't go there. We're not going to cover it. And so for most people who have kind of base level insurances, which is the larger ones who kind of are a lot more regulatory and a lot more on the cost saving side of things, well, then when you're operating a hospital, it's like, well, now the doctor's going to not make any money. We're going to go out of business because now we can't even get like 10 patients in 2 weeks. And it's because, again, you get bumped out of these networks because you didn't follow all the rules. You're not allowed. You as a doctor can't make your own decisions with your own practice. You have to do what we say. Otherwise, you're out of here. You lose these benefits of these networks and you're gone. And that's unfortunate too for us, because as far as I know, Anthem's one of like the largest ones in the entire industry. So to lose somebody like Anthem, you lose like a lot of people who are going to be able to, who otherwise would have went there. And if they try to go there, well, now they have to pay out of pocket. Or you got to make a whole head mess of like, now I got to change insurances. Who else can I go to that will be covered and go through the hospital as well? And it's just like, again, it's a huge nightmare. And I don't want to keep derailing too much because I wanted to go back to the Maha thing, which is you have all of these, like the food companies, again, the lobbyists as well, all of these people in tandem with like, let's get these people as fat and unshapely as possible, make them as unhealthy as possible. You know, Michelle Obama's Fuel Up to Play 60, I think before it was Fuel Up to Play 60, it was the removing sugar from foods, but they changed that like after like a couple months and went to just exercise alone because they realized like that's disincentivizing the sugar companies, and they had like lobbyists came in. It's been a while since I've read the story. And then you see the current state of young kids today, right? Almost most of the young kids I see today are like just little fat blobs, and it makes me sad. They're just like, they're super unsightly, and it's not to be rude, but you also then have the institutions that be body positivity, and it's the fattest woman you've ever seen being put on a magazine cover. And
Lizzo,
they do all this stuff to
you're hot
reinforce
like Lizzo. Tell that to somebody in real life.
Yeah, right.
You know, body positivity, but then you go up and say, "Hey, man, you're hot like Lizzo." They're gonna be like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
The issue is we can't say what we're thinking because then we're the bad guys. We get canceled, even though we're told to just tell everybody, "No, you look great." Like, no, if you're unhealthy, I'm gonna call you out. You need to be called out.
Yeah,
and because if you're not getting called out, like the kids younger are just be like, "Oh, that's okay to get like that." Unless you have a medical reason to be like that, please check yourself.
Yeah.
Stop trying to like every day trying to fish compliments and this and that. Humans,
yeah, the echo chambers are deadly.
Humans should be working under stress. A little bit of stress every day. If everything's all happy, dandy, flowers and candy this, candy that, as a race, we are going nowhere.
Yeah, you don't grow. I'll steal a phrase that I heard from Ian Crossland on Timcast a while back, but he said, you know, with resistance, that's how you grow. You don't grow without resistance. It's, you look at it just like working out. You know, you lift weights, you're feeling the resistance, you're fighting the resistance, and then there is a result. You grow, your muscles grow. Same thing with, you know, studying. It's not the easiest thing, but you're battling that resistance, that the willpower to just stop and go watch TV or go play a sport or whatever. But you know, as you battle the resistance, then you grow through it. You become smarter.
Like if we're not criticizing one another, how are we going to grow? You're not telling me that every individual person has everything in their brain right now that makes them the most fantastic person ever. Like everybody needs to accept the fact that like, hey, I don't know jack shit for a lot of stuff. And just accept it, and then just reach out and ask those people. And if someone tells you something is one way or the other, and it challenges you, stop getting offended. Like just take it in and figure out why are they saying this? You know, they clearly have free will and mindset and eyes to evaluate something. They must have gotten to this conclusion somehow. Figure out why. If at the end you figure out it, like, you know, is just for being dumb, then disregard it. But everybody gets to a point where they're going to say something out loud because they've mentally assimilated and worked through that this is the conclusion they got to. By just dismissing everything everybody tells us, we're kind of just saying, hey, no, your thought process is whack. Mine's the...
What ends up happening, though, is like, because we're so few and far between, and there's a lot more people who are like unwilling to be offensive, well, they get an opinion from you and say, I'm always like, hey, man, dude, like, bro, you got to move around, man. Like you're literally sitting on the couch 8 hours a day, dude. You can't be eating Doritos nonstop. Like, bro, what do you expect? And then they're like, well, that felt bad. Like, that's like the worst thing that's happened to them in 2 weeks. And then they go to someone else and they're like, hey, like, am I doing okay? Like, is this good? And they're like, no, man, you're great. You should always love yourself. There's more people who end up saying that second part than the first part. So people will just be like, write you off as like being like mean or
you become an asshole.
You're a bad guy.
You're an asshole.
Because then 5 other people were like, no, dude, you look great. You're perfect how you are. You don't need to do any of that and change any of that. And as someone who's like a former personal trainer, I love the industry for a lot of reasons similar to this. But the one thing I will tell you is like the majority of motivation, specifically for men, I don't know if the same thing's for women, but I can't speak for men. You know, men move when they've finally been fat shamed to the point where they're like, I can't live like this. I don't want to live like this anymore. Right. And it doesn't have to be direct every single time. It can be indirect. Right. It's like, I can't ride this roller coaster with my kid because literally the guy kicked me off and said, man, you can't, you go past the weight limit. Or being pushed off the elevator because they're like, hey, man, dude, the weight pound limit's only 600 pounds. We don't think you're going to be able to fit with our 3 kids. And then you get the direct, right? Having the brotherhood, having the guys who are like, hey, dude, like, you start light, right? It's like, hey, man, you need to move around. And then if you don't, at a certain point, the guys are like, hey, dude, like, you're literally throwing your life away. And like, we don't want you around because like, if we're trying to pick up girls and we're carrying around like this this massive dude, like you're going to bring the whole crew down. And these are just like small like instances that kind of build up over time. And as a personal trainer, it works the same way even on an individual level, where like if you yourself don't look in the mirror and say, man, like I need to improve myself, like I cannot stand what I see in the mirror, I'm living a lifestyle that's conducive to me kind of hating myself and hating what I look like, I want to change that. But that's like, that's offensive. You going that route and going that too far is like, no, that's, well, mental health and like all these things take priority over it. Well, and this is why all these body positivity girls end up dying before they hit 30 years old. It's because all of society, their friends included, probably family members as well, were like, no, just do whatever you want, no consequences, and boom, it's over. They have no legacy. They didn't get a chance to have children. And the whole thing is just like, again, you look at it from the macro, and it's like one industry after the other is holding hands with each other, like in a kumbaya, while all the regular people who don't pay attention are literally like dying and having these ridiculous ailments, high cost this, high cost that, can't move around, broken backs, and then fat on top of it. And it's just super unfortunate to see.
Yeah, yes. Michael Hines, great comment. Real talk for that. Let your boys call you out. The amount of times I've heard Darren or anybody else call me out in college, like, yo, look a little big there, huh? And yeah, what do you think I did? Got my ass back in the gym.
Yeah, well, what's funny is my neighbor, he's an older dude. He's a veteran, and he's had this toe thing going on with his foot, and he ended up having to go hospitalized for like 2 weeks, and they ended up cutting off his pinky toe. And he just came home the other day after being gone for so long. I went over to check on him, and he says, "Man, you're gaining some weight." And I'm just like, oh shit. I knew it, but it's like I gotta freaking start.
Don't say it.
Yeah, God bless those kind of neighbors, man. They people who call you out, they're looking out for you, man. Like,
oh yeah, no, I love him. He's a great guy.
No, 100%. Yeah. I know the type. Like, I got a neighbor like that too.
yeah. You gaining some weight. I was like, yeah, I know. I'm gaining it really fast too. I gotta change my lifestyle. I'm 43, and it's to the point where I've always been one of these type of dudes. I was 155 pounds, and I could eat ice cream every night. I could eat whatever I wanted, and now it's finally catching up to me. So unfortunately, old man time is undefeated, and now it's a battle.
Hey man, I'll say you don't look 43, so whatever you're doing is still working.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I got to just make sure I don't catch up all of a sudden. And
it's probably staying mentally active is a lot of the the workhorse. But I saw something in the comments where somebody was like, "Oh, if hospitals didn't charge X amount, then it'd be fine." 100%. Or if doctors didn't charge this. Man, we don't charge anything. It's a fixed amount. We do need to take it up with the admin. What's up with this inflated cost? Why are you guys charging so much? Because I feel for everybody talking about if doctors don't charge this, they would be fine. Like, we're not charging you anything. We have no control in what you're being charged. If we did, we would totally cut it down, because we're not going to see a dime of that directly.
Right.
Which is crazy. We will. It's part of our salary, but you look up. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was cutting in, but I was just gonna say it's just crazy, because you guys are, the actual the practice, like doctors, I guess, or you will be, but you guys are paying for the building that you're in. You're paying the insurance for the building that you're in. You're employing, the people that you're working, there and everything like that. But yeah, you can't going back to the sneakers and the capitalism thing. You can't say that these are my prices and these are my services and they cost this much. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's almost already not capitalistic, anyways, the way that it's already set up.
Now,
you're carrying the student loan debt. You're trying to get that paid for. You're providing one of the most valuable services to mankind, if not the most valuable service to mankind. And yet you can't say, look, if I'm going to do an x-ray, I just need this much, even though you bought the x-ray machine for however many thousands of dollars.
I would love to, if I was allowed to own the system, which legally now I cannot run the system because it's illegal for me to own the hospital. If it was up to me, man, I would love transparency.
Right. But it's just crazy, because it's we were talking about how it's like capitalism or taking the capitalism out of it, and it's like it's already kind of not. It's already kind of under like a dictatorship as far as
Yeah.
like, you know, there's the thing where people say healthcare is a right, but then the counter is you don't have a right to anyone else's labor, but you shouldn't have the right to anyone else's labor at a set cost for that person to not like determine.
Yeah.
Like for me, out of the construction world, if you want me to come and build your house or repair your deck that's been falling apart and neglected, or paint your wall, I can tell you it's going to cost you X amount of dollars. And if I run into an issue, it might cost more.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But for like you guys that are, like I said, once again, providing probably the most valuable thing to mankind, service to mankind, you can't do that if you're already like limited.
I mean, I guess. I mean, you do make a good point. Like, yeah, if we tell you, the thing is, we don't even know what the cost of certain things is, because
it changes.
It's not part of what we're taught. It like,
yeah,
it's the giving of the care that we're taught, not the cost of what. Like, sure, a lot of us are proactive, can be proactive, figure out what these costs are. And as soon as a lot of us figure out what the costs are, then it's a light bulb moment of like, holy shit, you guys are charging this much for the thing that we're just doing every day?
Mm-hmm.
And we're just now finding out that whatever we're doing every day, you're inflating by like 400% and then charging on the patient. Like, that's pretty up.
Yeah.
Like,
All this,
like 100% fucked up. And if you're someone in the comments or someone who's a patient at a clinic or hospital and you're getting this bill and you're saying, fuck, and it's a private clinic owned by a physician, 100% go in there, cuss them out. If it's a hospital though, go to the billing department and just ask for a breakdown of your costs. They're legally obliged to tell you and give you that breakdown. They will send you a bill in the mail, expect you to start flipping the shit, start paying maybe the bill, but what the average person doesn't know is you're legally obligated to an itemized list of that bill. The hospital will never give you that straight up without you asking for it. Because if I've done this a couple times, some family and friends, and hey, the bill is so high, what do I do? Man, as soon as you call the billing department and say, can I get an itemized list? Watch count on your watch how fast they hang the phone up.
That's crazy.
And then they'll call you back and they'll send you the itemized list. And once you see the itemized list, look at the admin costs, please. Majority of your bill there isn't going to be so inflated, because what the charge on there, the actual provider is maybe like 20% of what your actual bill is. 15 or 20%. Now, and that makes a good point. So that way, like if we talk about like non-publicly traded insurance companies and hospitals and stuff like that, the best example is Kaiser Permanente. And why are they so good? It's because they're in California. California can govern its own laws. It can make their own laws. Okay. Kaiser is physician run and owned. Kaiser has the lowest denial rate. They got the lowest average billing for a major hospital. They have some of the best compensation for people who work for them: nurses, physicians, PAs, techs, janitors, everybody. And what do they also do? Sell you the insurance too.
Oh,
interesting. Wow. So it's like all combined. It's like care and coverage as well.
Yeah, 100%. And like, why is that not done at a big scale? Because the government mandate said it's illegal to. Why can you do it in Cali? Cali runs its own system. They can do whatever they want.
Maybe you would know all this offhand. Do you know what like the precedent was? Like, what was the reason in 2010 that they disallowed?
It was the affordable. I don't know the exact reason, but the Affordable Care Act. I think Section 6001 is when I looked into it. Section 6001 of the Affordable Care Act.
Thanks, Obama.
Yeah. basically stop physicians from owning these hospitals. The thing is, that wasn't the problem. What he started was, in like theory, a good idea. When it comes back down to everybody buy in, we increase the pool amount of money that we have to cover these people, and we can probably cover a lot of stuff for you guys. And what ended up happening is now this comes on the government. And now once the cost comes onto the government, what ends up happening? Insurance companies figure out that the government has money to spend. It's the same thing that you sell defense contracts, you sell construction contracts from the government. There's a set budget. The contractors know what the budget is beforehand. They'll inflate everything, no matter if it's in construction, if it's, legal consult, if it's in securities consults. When government sells contracts, they have a set amount of money that they have to use up. So what is the average person that's going to be contracted to do this work going to do? Inflate their prices.
Yeah, spend it to get it.
Spend it
Because
to
if
get
they see
it.
it's like, hey, you actually
Yeah.
went like 3 million on this budget when we gave you 10 million, we'll just give you 3 million next time.
Yeah,
And then
they're
now
gonna
you got to work
know.
with the
Yeah,
balance of that.
yeah. So you just inflate it.
Right.
Once
Especially if
then
you
one,
take me
one
on vacation
yeah.
to the Bahamas on your yacht that you're going to buy
Yeah.
with the fact that I awarded
And
you
the
with
thing
this contract.
is, once it's inflated and the insurance companies start sniffing out like, yo, there's money to spend here, they're gonna charge the hospitals what they want to charge because they know at the end of the day the government's picking up the tab.
Yeah.
And the hospitals know that too. And you don't think they want to cover some costs too? Yeah. But is it the physician covering their costs? Or we don't even know what's going on half the time. You show up to work, go to work, see the patients, and they're the ones telling us, hey, you spent 17 minutes with that person. We need you to spend 14 next time. Like they're telling us how much time we can give to the actual person that is paying into these services.
It's crazy. That's looking at numbers and not human beings, kind of back to that, that scenario.
See, Michael Hines brings up a great point. Like, yeah, you'll see these bullshit costs when you get an itemized list, and you can argue it. You can straight up call, say like, hey, this is $300 charge for an NP, or she didn't do anything. And
Yeah,
you
can
can
bring
argue,
up the recordings.
You can argue.
$300
replay.
And as soon as you say, hey, bring up the recordings, let me get some time to, get shit together. So I can address everything you want that's transparent, because I'm not ready for it as the hospital, as is the hospital. I'm not ready for you to call me out on my BS. Let me get ready. Give me a couple days. That's why they'll call you back a couple days later.
Wow.
So, well, let me ask a question then in the same regard. So say if you get your doctorate, would you be able to then be like, I'm going to buy this plot of land over here. I'm going to call it Amol's Hospital. I'm going to hire other doctors, and we're going to run this like a hospital?
I can't.
You can't.
I legally can't. If
so that
anybody
means
finds
private
out, they'll come and shut me. Private practices are different. Because
and that's
those
just
are
like specializations, though. That's like
those are
ENT.
specializations or your basic outpatient care. And the reason some of those specialists have to they charge what they charge on outpatient is because the drugs they're using and whatever, it's so new to the market. But every once in a while you do get a greedy outpatient physician who's giving your basic checkups and charging you so much money. But I'm telling you, they won't be staying afloat if they keep that model up. That's why a lot of them have to adjust for that, because they're the sole billers, providers, and their own businessmen. So if they overcharge everybody, I can't imagine they will stay afloat for long.
Well, yeah. Well, I think I mixed it here. I think Tix Bomber had a comment up here talking about when building a new mega hospital in his area, said it's been nothing but a giant scam that's cost taxpayers millions of dollars in infrastructure upgrades to be able to build something that huge on marshlands. So then I'm assuming then if you can't own it privately, and you not since 2010, right? Anything unless it was like grandfathered in. That must mean then that this is a purely like all hospitals are like publicly owned, which just really means like it's not private by any means, and then it's able to be like funneled and propagated and improved by taxpayer dollars. So then it becomes like another burden on people.
Buy taxpayer dollars and buy insurance companies.
And so that seems kind of wild, right? Like that seems like a conflict of interest, right? If we're talking about not being 100%. A capital system, and I can't compete with the hospital that I want to build myself. So like say I went to school, I'm a doctor, and I learned like general practice, and I want to hire other doctors and start my own hospital because I would think I can do a better job than they can, and you can't. Well, then it's like, I mean, by definition, it's not capitalism. Then if
you won't stay afloat because these insurance companies won't cover you. They're not going to reimburse you for the patients that you see. They will not.
Yeah. Right, like
because you're out of network. Why are you out of network? Because you won't play their game of inflating everything.
Yeah, yeah, and you're not, and you don't fall under like they'd have to give you like a different definition, right? You'd be like, well, you don't qualify
because you're not going to play ball with them. They're not going to funnel the patients towards you, and not even just funneling, because you're not playing ball with them. They will make it their daily goal to get you shut down or bought out. Everywhere you go, in your day-to-day for the next couple of days, everybody who's listening or watching, just see how many private clinics you see. It'll be a big drop from what you would have seen maybe like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. They're getting bought out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to play the game of inflating everything. A lot of them don't. They don't have the energy to do that. Also see patients every day on top of that. Bro, good luck.
Yeah, and fight with every charge. Like
Yeah.
every time someone makes it out to the waiting area, be like, all right, doc, what is it? It's like
Go figure out how much insurance is reimbursing you, what percentage, and then figure out what math you have to do to turn it on to the patient to have them cover your costs too, so that you can stay in the positive. And then also on top of that, figure out how to market and advertise to bring people towards your clinic. It doesn't work. Capitalism,
Probably counter lawsuits as well.
Same thing. I think that's where you go into the why these places aren't staying afloat, because capitalism and healthcare practice as a provider it just doesn't match.
Yeah, so I guess there's different categories here, right? We have like private providers. We have providers who work for public hospitals. We have the hospital execs, hospital owners, and then we have insurance companies and then government. So it's like 5 kind of groups in this entire scenario. And so if you're like a doctor who then doesn't work private practice, but you go public, I mean, what we're also hearing, and most people don't understand even too, is like those doctors obviously don't set the prices for like what the hospital charges.
100%.
Like they're just working inside the system.
And like if those people speak up and try to do something and figure out a change or something, like we're not unionized. We can't all just collectively group together and be like, guys, we're going to stop working. Like if we try to speak up about anything and whatever, they're going to be like, they take note of that. Who are our employers take note of that. They'll figure out ways to like be like, hey, your contract's up. It was great having you, but unfortunately, like we're seeing different separate ways. So like we don't have much power, and like if even the power that we do have, it's just like, okay, your complaint was noted.
Yeah,
right.
But I guess if you get your doctorate, then you're like, you would never be able to work as an exec that could dictate decisions, or could you?
Well,
the
thing is, so I was going to bring up that point. So like on the board, like there is MDs and like stuff like that. Like there are, and it's all, hey, yeah, we have a really great provider on our board. It's just an image a lot of the times. Like obviously, like they know like what goes on in the system and like how to provide and like for what patients, stuff like that. But you're telling me that like as soon as they get on the board of a hospital like that, they're also not thinking in a monetary way? Yeah, no, bullshit.
Right.
Like
right.
Even though they have the title, they are now a businessman.
Yeah, because you're not practicing anymore.
Because you're not. I mean, like a lot of them actually still do see patients. Like, and a lot of the ones who are on the board are specialists. Okay, but now like they can say like, hey, I'm just a doctor. No, you're a businessman.
Yeah.
As soon as you've entered that world of being on an admin board with costs in mind and charges in mind, you are now a businessman. And if you're not making money for that corporation, go back to seeing doctors or patients. So essentially, you have to work for them.
Wouldn't their oath still remain at that point if you're a doctor first?
Yeah, it does, but their oath has nothing to do with costs, yet they're now in the position of controlling the costs. So the oath doesn't apply.
So
and then that goes back to the fact that like anybody on a board and anybody like any admins, if you're not an MD, you don't have an oath to begin with.
Well, I was going to say, if I was to identify a solution or something, obviously one of the first things to try out of everything we talked about here would be to get doctors to group up to form private hospitals.
That
would be one of the first laws for like.
Things that work. Like look at Kaiser. Kaiser works. Everybody on there who runs a thing is a doctor, sees patients every day.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, because then you have to compete, right? And then I think obviously all these tax breaks, even Michael Hines brought that up, right? Tax breaks, it's not capitalism now. Government's kind of pulling in to subsidize different portions of this that other private entrepreneurs can't enter. Pull all that back. People will talk about how we have not a socialist system, but it's a corporatocratic system, right? It's like everything's kind of emboldened by what the large corporations decide and what their regulations are, and it kind of trickles down. If we could repeal whatever that law is, whatever that portion is in the ACA, that says like, you can't, private physicians can't own their own hospitals, allow that to open up. And then also you would have to then move to putting enforcement measures in for like insurance companies not banding together to be like, we're all not going to cover these private hospitals.
Mhm.
You would need kind of like all of those to fall in place for that to work. Because otherwise, how would even a private hospital even function in the first opening years if everybody had to pay out of pocket when they went there?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a first step, right? It's like opening it back up, allowing private hospitals to be a thing.
I think that's a big first step, and then I think another big first step would be, like, I don't know how we would go about this, but like, why are these companies being publicly traded?
Yeah, I completely agree with that take.
Why?
That
And
they shouldn't be publicly traded.
Why they should not be, like Kaiser? I keep bringing up, they are not publicly traded. You can't buy stock in them. They're not gonna increase your profits of your investments.
Well, think about it too. Like, how does an insurance company make money? The only like insurance contracts are, what do they call it? It's like unilateral, right? So it's like the insurance company takes on more liability than what the person paying the contract does, right? So say you have like a $400,000 policy or something in place like that, and you only pay like a $200 premium over like a 10-year period. It's like you're not going to pay up to what the insurance company would have to pay out.
Mm-hmm.
So you make money. So like people invest in these companies on the fact that they will deny more claims than they pay out.
Yep.
So shareholders invest into insurance companies on the basis that they will end up denying more claims than paying out. So that insurance company will end up either growing or maintaining its value. So their dollar bills will reflect that, and it'll be a store of value. And I think that's where it's like, that makes no sense at all. Because then if like all of these shareholders buy into this, they buy into it because the insurance company is finding a great way to mitigate all losses or mitigate all liability. They're finding, different bits in here, and they'll be like, well, it says here that you came in on a Sunday at 3:01 p.m. We can't cover that. It's actually afternoon special. We don't cover anything from 3 to 4 p.m. And it's kind of like these ridiculous like ways to deny claims. And I think the way that United Healthcare was doing it was algorithmically, right? It was like, it wasn't even going through an agent. It was like going through like an AI portal where people would like kind of put in like what their claim was. And the AI would just be like, you're denied. And then the person has like no go to. It's like an instant decision, automatically denied. And you would have to like then go through customer call center then for like however long you have to be on hold with that to then get a hold of somebody to even go through with you like why things were denied. And it becomes like this whole long process of like, when now instead of being like with my family or at work, I have to set aside like 2 hours to call the place, similar to like going to like the BMV, right? It's like that's a whole like hour or 2 hour escapade depending on where you're at. It's just like super inefficient.
The thing is, all of these are tools and utilities at the end of the day that are used to increase the value of the share. It all comes down to that. We're publicly traded. We need to increase our profits. We need to make our shareholders money. How do we do so in a service and industry that provides for the people? Make sure we're getting more money from the people than we're giving them or covering them for. And hospitals are also in the wrong though for inflating costs because they want to cover their CEO salaries and yachts and boats and shit.
Well, yeah, and to play devil's advocate to the position I just advocated for would be then you come with the same kind of disincentivization, right? So say it's like, well, you want to cap how much a doctor makes, who'd want to do it? Well, then who'd want to own an insurance company if you kind of enforce that they would have to take on more liabilities than what they were previously? So then it's more like
who covers? Finding
a good middle ground, right? It's like instead of denying like 24% of all claims that come in, we need that number to be around like 16%. You're still going to be like, you're still going to make $10 million as a CEO, but you're not going to be making $98 million as a CEO.
Yeah.
And it's like we got to find like this middle ground here where you're 100%. Paying out more claims, so it's more beneficial for the people who pay for the coverage.
Yeah, no, great. Like 100%, like right head on the nail. Like we have to figure out what that middle ground is. What it is, I don't know, but it has to start somewhere. And I think it just start at the point of what companies are using a industry that is a basic human necessity as a investment platform.
Yeah. Well, and one other thing I'd bring up too, I would make it illegal for insurance companies to lobby the government. I would
100%. There's so much money that goes behind backing candidates. and laws that should not even be brought up on the table to sign.
And that brings me to a question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Can Elon Musk and Vivek and with Doge, since the government is so like involved in the process, essentially, can they come in and do anything about this, or is it too privatized? Is it? I don't know. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of one of their responsibilities they're going to do. I don't know. It might require like their full efforts to focus on something like this, but could they come in and try to, or is that just like way out of the realm of what they're kind of proposing, what they're their vision of what they're going to do is?
I mean, I think specifically
because I guess the reason why I ask, sorry, I keep cutting you off, but I guess the reason why I ask is because it seems like there's so many layers that like one fix won't really fix it. It almost needs to be like a higher power, for lack of a better words, that comes in and says, all right, this is the bad part. This is also the bad part. This is also the bad part. We're going to cut these three things out, or we're going to reduce them, because it's like the selling of the shares of the corporate, of these companies. It's also the basically requirement to spend the budget, multiple things that all kind of don't necessarily have to do with the next, but they're all still involved in the equation. So that could some of this be like reduced potentially, or addressed and controlled? Because I mean, at this point, with especially when you're talking about, because the government is involved. I mean, they run Medicare and stuff like that or whatever. So I mean, with them being so involved, can they come in and literally like make those type of cuts, or should they, or just kind of thinking out of the box here?
One of the first place my mind goes to with the Doge, with government efficiency, before I let Amol answer this too, not allowing like the turnover, right? The going back and forth, some way where it's like, were you a CEO at Pfizer? It's like, okay, you can't run for office. You just like, you can't come into government, because like we know where your biases are going to lie here. Like, you don't even, like, if we're going to make lobbying illegal, or it's like, well, if we bring in someone who was like from a massive company to run for some kind of office or hold some kind of committee that would then again be able to manipulate or influence the industry you just came from, that's conflict of interest. We can't have that.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be one of the first plays you could kind of put that would Doge would have control over, because they're Department of Government Efficiency, and they're not really like an official kind of branch of government. They're just like a kind of like almost like kind of like a consultant group, really, kind of like someplace that Trump will kind of pull out of from like a cabinet, really. But finding more ways to mitigate like all of the conflicts of interest, right? And being like, all right, this person went here and here, and even if you don't outright make it illegal, make it like have a terrible connotation, and be like, hey, we just want to let you know this guy worked for this company and this company and this company, and these companies all did X, Y, and Z. It's like, just so you know, and kind of run campaigns like that, and make it like more exposed, more out in the open, and less like after they're in position. It's like, oh, hey, this person who won the Senate seat is like, they used to work for Pfizer for 100 years, and they made all this money and made all these choices. It's like, especially what we know now, it's like that person should be nowhere like near government, because we know like where they're going to try to influence it from.
Yeah.
I think transparency. If we figure out and publicly know where people's interests lie, we would make better decisions. And that applies to the government, and that applies to everything private too. If we know somebody has a vested interest that they would benefit by supporting a certain cause that would potentially, hurt the people of America, we can figure out why a decision was made to be the way it was made, because it potentially could have benefited somebody on their own interests.
Yeah. Or you find out like the person who made that choice, their daughter's the board on this company, and like, oh, that makes sense why they just got this like $85 million like subsidy for this one thing. It's like that stuff is like what like it's got to get eliminated, because otherwise these problems they'll never stop. It'll be the same people giving the helping hand. It's like, 10% for the big guy, like wink. And it's like, that's why we pushed this bill through. It had nothing to do with that. We thought it was the right thing. It's because we knew we were going to be able to get, $80 million to go to this one company, and 3 of our children are on the board. Like, we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. But I gotta run, guys. But I appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh yeah.
Today. Great talk. But everybody stay informed. Not everything's the way it seems that it is.
Yeah, dude. Well, I appreciate
healthcare
you.
Bills.
Yeah,
Right.
well, we
We
certainly
appreciate it.
appreciate you coming in and adding your insight and good luck with the next like year or so. You said you're about done within the next year. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. That's a
Yeah.
big gamble on yourself, and I got a lot of respect for folks like you and stuff like that. So, like I said, thanks for spending some time with us. Maybe we'll have you back in the future if you're willing to. And we got another situation that comes up because I know a lot of our viewers are actually veterans dealing with the healthcare system and stuff like that regularly. So your insight is something that I can't provide, something that Atlas can't provide. So it's nice to have you be a part of it.
It'd be great to hop on another time too, for sure.
Cool. And is there any place like? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
You guys got a great platform here. Keep it up, and everybody stay tuned in.
Real talk, thanks.
Without any filter, and anybody has a point to make, drop it in the comments. It gets taken care of and addressed.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I was gonna say, is there any place like, are you on socials? People can follow you. You want to let people know any of that type of stuff or anything?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Twitter. I don't really. It's pretty much just my personal life. Kind of keep it private.
No, that's cool.
Really
Yeah, no,
public stuff. But I might make an account one day for healthcare talk and stuff.
Sure.
But everybody stay blessed, man. Every day is a new day, and got a roof over your head, you got water, you got food. Be thankful. Stop being a dick to everybody else. That's all we can ask.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Well, once again, appreciate it. That's Amol Randhawa. I think I said it right. Hopefully.
Yep.
I got my my Midwestern accent on there. So
I appreciate you guys. Take care, man. It was nice.
Yeah, man. Have a good night. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, take it easy. Have a good night, man.
Yeah, you too, guys.
All right. Well, that was awesome. We got about another 25 minutes that we can run through. We talk some drones and things like that. If you guys want to switch gears a little bit, that was really good conversation. I learned a lot from that. What do you guys think in chat? I mean, let us know, because there's so many layers to this that JB asked the question and I put it on the screen, but we didn't really address it to answer it. But it's like, who's the corrupt one here? And it's almost like there's layers of corruption coming from every little last piece of entity that's involved. And that's why I actually asked the question about Doge. And I know probably Doge wouldn't be the exact right circumstances, program to address this type of thing. Maybe there needs to be like a Doge offshoot 0.0 that's just designed to focus on something like this, to try to go through and reduce the costs where they can be reduced and should be reduced. Because a lot of this stuff is subsidized by the government and as well. So I mean, there is an interest from the government as well to minimize the waste. And so I don't know. It's I think we got some of the right people in there. I think RFK Jr. is going to actually do a lot of things beneficial for people on the front end, as far as like getting healthy, which is one of the big steps. I think
it would fall under like HHS, right? So it'd probably be closer to like what RFK has a handle on rather than like Doge.
Yeah.
But you just saying that made me think like, have like a open public like ledger and be like, this is what all these anesthesias should cost, right? This is what the base, like the average cost of these are. This is what the average cost of ibuprofen should be. This is what the average cost of like, and if that was like a bit more public or like very easily accessible that someone could go to and like reference, then they could have an easier time kind of fighting the hospital, right? If they were like getting charged something like that.
Yeah, I see JB. Voltex Bomber first said it's a blooming onion of corruption and greed. Yeah, that's a nice way of wording that. And then JB said they don't have enough time to fix it. They can try, which is crazy to think that 4 years isn't enough to fix it. But man, I hate to say that I tend to agree. Maybe they can make some progress. And all this kind of spawned a lot of this new eyeballs spawned because of the whole assassination and the polarization, or not even polarization, the wake of people saying that, you know, this is a result of the healthcare system being so greedy. And you know, it's weird. I might be on the outskirts of the majority, and the reason why is like, because I thought it was more polarizing, but I think it is people on both the left and the right. They're coming together on this, and I find myself on the outskirts, but it's just because I wish it wouldn't take something like this for a guy being shot in the back in cold blood in December when his kids should be looking forward to Christmas. Now they're planning funerals, right?
Yeah.
And so I wish that the cases that these people were talking about, where the corruption, who the corruption affected, were making that dent, right? We're making that effect. We're causing that effect on the people, not a guy cold-bloodedly murdering somebody by shooting them in the back, sending a dude straight to the afterlife with no warning. He didn't even see it coming. Because, you know,
Yeah.
these stories, these people who are dying of cancer, or they're dying of whatever, or just suffering for long periods of time, longer than they should, because they can't get their health care paid for, or they're just, I mean, even, you know, committing self-harm, leaving the world on their own terms because they've been fit with this financial burden and pain that they can't get resolved. Those should be the stories that are affecting the masses, that are bringing both sides together. And so, like, it's it's not that I disagree or that I'm against people rallying to the cause because of the current situation. It's that I wish the affected people that everybody's standing up for would cause that result. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
you know, it's equally as tragic, and maybe even more tragic, because people that were doing things on, you know, in the right place, you know, paying their insurance bills or whatever, and still their premiums, and still not getting the care that they need, to the point where they end up suffering. So I don't know.
No,
I was in a little back and forth with my my sister-in-law last night, and I was reflecting after we got off the phone, which was like, why am I not with this? And I realized it's just because I wish that, like I said, it was the victims that were causing the outcry from the masses. You know what I mean? And not to say that the CEO wasn't a victim, but there's multiple victims involved here. And, you know, it's more of my disappointment in the rest of the society from not being affected, you know. And it's like, we don't see it on social media as much as this story, but I feel like we should, you know.
oh no, I agree. I guess my kind of take on it too is like I see it coming. In fact, I'm like surprised it didn't happen sooner.
Mhm.
You know, as fortunate as it is. I mean, imagine during the COVID period, right? You have like people who weren't even allowed to see like their other significant others unless they're like through glass walls, like while they're dying, over a thing that we were supposed to believe was all was very, you know, deadly and harmful. And you know, people were getting like locked out. You can't. And it happened to me personally with two of my own family members. You know, we had to do like one person at a time. Couldn't really get to see them, and both of those family members were lost. And in their final moments, we were being held back by people who worked in the healthcare industry. And that's
Mhm.
not even to mention like the whole like purging of their own, right? Like I have another friend who has worked as an RN for like the majority of his life, and then was kicked out of working in healthcare because his own uncle didn't take in his what was it called, like religious slip, freedom of religion slip, to
Mm.
not take the, you know, the bad word on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah,
And
the health procedure.
yeah, and it was his own uncle was the one who said, "I'm not taking this, and I know why you're not taking this." And
Mhm.
so he was forced to exit out of there. And that's even like on like kind of like the small level extremes we saw during in 2020. And then now you see like, you know, with certain veteran situations, right? you know, being hooked up to different things, like having really bad procedures go wrong, or being promised healthcare, and then you get home and you have these injuries, and like they just like all these kind
The
of things.
PA
It's like
taking forever or just whatever. Yeah.
exactly. And so for me, I'm kind of like I would have expected something to happen sooner based on the kind of like high rate of stories we've seen of people being affected by this industry and its malpractice in general. But I do agree with you. It's like it's still tragic that it takes like such a ridiculous like moment, such like a very bad moment of violence and like lack of like willpower from somebody to for people to be like, well, maybe we should talk about this, right?
Right.
And then that's when it's like, yeah, it's like that's the unfortunate part. It's like we all kind of like that speaks to kind of like the apathetic nature of America. It's like they don't really affect you personally. It's not punching you in the mouth in every day. It's like you're not going to care about it because it's just like there's too many things to escape from.
Right. Yeah. So you know, I just wanted to say that, but let's go ahead and let's switch over here to some drone stuff. We gotta make sure we hard dip out at 8 o'clock this evening. So we got 19 minutes. We're getting into that Christmas season, and today's your birthday, so we want to let you get back to your family and stuff like that as well. Man, that's gotta suck having a birthday so close to Christmas. My birthday's in May, so I like had the ample amount of time between the two. So like they don't get these double up Christmas / birthday presents. I got presents for both.
Yeah, well, I've never known anything but. So it's like people always say that, but it's like it's been my life. I really don't know anything different, to be honest. And somebody asked me earlier too. I'm turning 29. I am 29.
Yeah, right. Yeah, everybody's always just turning 29. No, that's cool.
Pretty funny one, right? Yeah, no, trust me, I feel old.
Yeah. My wife's laughing in the other room. But
I promise I'm 29. Born in 1995.
Yeah, no, you're good. We know. Hold
on, I'll get this birth certificate.
Oh, that's funny. Tix Bomber said, I'm wondering what will happen when both the housing and the auto market bubble bursts again. It's coming. They're unsustainable probably at the same time. So let's go around unsurprisingly. You know, to that, I noticed that because since we're kind of talking about the insurance thing, I brought that one. I put that one on the screen. I saw on Patrick Bet David, well, the PBD podcast, they were covering the insurance because he's like in the insurance industry for like one of his other businesses besides entertainment. And he was talking about how a lot of these insurance companies were just straight up dipping out of certain states because of government regulation and stuff like that. So kind of contributes to bubbles bursting because it just increases rates when you have fewer options. So
yeah,
you've seen a lot of happy birthdays there in chat.
Yes,
well.
Thank you guys. I appreciate them.
Tix Bombers in June. Okay, that's cool. So yeah, you know what I'm talking about there, Tix Bomber. hopefully.
Summer birthday parties is probably a lot different than winter birthday parties, to be fair.
Yeah. So JB said drones with red and green lights, Merry Christmas is what they're saying at this point. What they should say at this point. That is what they're just the new age Christmas decorations. Duh. No.
They're just big. Yeah, they're just big Christmas ornaments. Nothing to see here, guys.
Oh man, so that conversation was so good. I forgot to stage my my screen share. So there we go. And we got to pull up some stuff. Where do we want to start? Because like I said, we got to keep this quick. But ever since the last show, I realized people were so interested. It was like, I don't know, I guess I just underestimated the amount of interest that folks would have in the whole drone scenario. But I swear it was like the next couple hours after the show, I was just like seeing all this new stuff that we didn't even talk about. So I basically reposted a bunch of stuff, and we can just kind of filter through some of it because there's some entertaining hypothesis of what they are and what's going on. And, you know, we're not claiming we know which one is the truth, but even it's to the point where Donald Trump is basically calling for answers and stuff like that. So it's reached up there in the interest levels.
Did you watch the video, the first one you had staged up? Because I actually watched Benny Johnson cover this one.
I did, but this is a 9-minute video. I thought it was only 4 minutes. So I was
We can just kind of describe it real quick because I remember I watched the whole thing literally like a couple hours ago.
yeah, do that. Do that.
So this guy is he's like he's either a maker. No, yeah, he's the CEO of a drone
Oh,
company.
he's the CEO. His name's John Ferguson. He's the CEO of Saxon Aerospace, a manufacturer of manned drones. And he gives his assessment of the mysterious drones plaguing New Jersey and other places in America right now. Which, speaking of which, a friend of ours who lives a little bit closer to the coast than we do said that he saw 6 of them fly over his house last night. So that's down here in Florida now.
Well, I
But go
think
go ahead and give your summary. Or
no, yeah, well, Jay's spot on there with this comment there. That's exactly what this kind of guy, what this guy is kind of alluding to. He goes into detail a bit more, more specifics of like what he knows about the drone industry. And he kind of, so the specifics of it is talking about a Ukrainian warhead, that was in Europe that they lost track of. And so there's a bit more to the story of like they lost track of it, right? But essentially, like there's a guy who he spoke to, high up officials, that had physically put his hand on this warhead, right? Like they knew it was there in Ukraine, and now there's like no record of it. And so he was saying, with his best guess, which especially if you track that the activity is only happening really during the night, that they're sniffing out, like they are suspected that maybe that's probably what they're looking for. Now, I
right. Well,
also did see,
let's just play some of it. I thought it was 4 minutes long, but maybe I just only watched the first 4 minutes. Which, if that's the case, then he gives his summary pretty quick. Are you cool with that?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Let's just do that because.
Hey everyone, my name is John Ferguson. I'm the CEO of Saxon Aerospace here in Wichita, Kansas. I'm not normally a TikTok kind of a guy. I like watching this stuff every once in a while. But I'm a manufacturer of unmanned aircraft, military grade unmanned aircraft, as you can see one of my systems here. There's all of these mysterious drones going on off the East Coast, and as a professional, as a subject matter expert, I wanted to give you all my opinion on what I think could be going on with these drones. I don't particularly believe that these have a nefarious intent. I could be wrong, but I want to give you the truth and what I believe. It's my own opinion, and I've not bounced this off of anybody. So, if you think it's bullshit, whatever, that's cool. I don't want to spread misinformation, as we know that there's a lot of that going around. But anyway, back in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan had dismantled the nuclear program, and there were, with Russia, there were countless nuclear missiles that were disarmed and disposed of. Well, there were over 80, I believe. There were over 80 nuclear warheads that were in Ukraine that came up missing. Okay. We don't know where they are. Maybe somebody does, but nobody really knows where these are. And I speak with some pretty high level government officials on this stuff, and it seems as though that is the case. So I spoke to a gentleman a few months ago who was trying to raise an alarm to the highest levels of our government, which they had their ears closed, about this one particular nuclear warhead that he physically put his hands on. He physically touched this warhead that was left over from Ukraine. And he knew that that thing was headed towards the United States. Okay.
Crazy.
That is a very serious deal. And everyone knows that the United States government, this administration, is pushing to get into a war with Russia. We all know that. We all feel it. We all see it. Okay. Well, back up a few years. Do y'all remember when those drones were mysteriously flying across the Interstate 70 corridor from Colorado up into Nebraska, down here into Kansas, and out into Missouri? Well, it was believed that those drones were looking for radioactive material because there had been some material that come up missing here in the United States, and they felt like it was high probability that the nuclear or the radioactive material would be taken along the Interstate 70 corridor heading east or west or south. So from what we understand, they were out there trying to find this radioactive material. Now, drones, they have no reason to be in the air at night unless you're doing some type of ISR work, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, looking for bad guys or looking for a victim, a search and rescue victim, or law enforcement, or some type of military project, right? There's no reason for a drone to be flying at night, really, okay? Because they don't see shit. So, unless you have thermal optics, drones really don't see stuff. You need to do mapping during the day. If you're going to do farming stuff, mostly do it during the day. The only reason why you would ever fly an aircraft, an unmanned aircraft at night, is if you're looking for something, whether it be a person or trying to smell gas. We have methane gas detection systems that can detect gas leaks in pipelines. You really wouldn't use thermal optics for trying to find gas leaks, just simply because the only way you're actually going to find a gas leak with thermal optics is if the gas leak is aggressive enough that it has a difference in temperature. Because thermal imaging, it creates a digital image based off of the temperature variance. So whatever is different in temperature, it creates an image. Usually gas leaks so slow that it goes quickly into ambient before you can even see it. So we have special sensors that can detect gas leaks. We also have special sensors that can detect radioactive material. So with this gentleman that I had spoken with, who was trying to raise the alarm to try to get somebody in the government to say, hey, we need to work together to go try to find this nuclear warhead, none of that ever happened. They knew that warhead was on its way to the United States. That's all that ever came of it. Nothing ever happened. This government did not do anything at all to help this gentleman raise the alarm and raise awareness that there is a very deadly weapon on its way to the United States.
Did he mention how big that was? He said the guy put his hands on it, but I wonder if, could somebody have brought this across our southern border in a backpack?
I mean, it's possible.
I mean,
I'm
how
pretty sure I saw someone talking earlier about trying to debunk the whole nuclear warhead in a suitcase narrative. I think Ian Carroll had a video covering that. I wish I would have bookmarked it, but I saw that this morning.
Huh. So I think we pretty much get
though, right?
what he was saying there, and it's just, wouldn't it be crazy to come to find out they find it, and it came across our southern border in a backpack or some type of suitcase or whatever, and cores are no bigger than a volleyball, and Biden threw somebody on a freaking jet and flew them straight to Chicago or whatever, and it was completely facilitated by our federal government, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
That'd just be crazy. Of course, it's all hypothetical, but I mean, just it's crazy. It's scary. But I don't know why, but that's the one that I'm tending to believe. The theory that I'm tending to believe is that they're actually ours and they're searching for something, and the reason why they're not telling us what it is because it's scary what they're searching for, and the fact that they're highly concentrated in certain areas over New Jersey and stuff, you'd kind of potentially cause a panic in New Jersey.
Or somebody else finds it before you do, right?
Oh, that's true. Oh, that's what you're looking for. Let's try to look for it too. But yeah, that's a good point as well. Go from one bad guy's hands to the next bad guy's hands, and then it's gone.
And then it also talks about they explain why when that one crashed, and I can't remember where it crashed at, that it got cleaned up, right? It was like no one, no, oh yeah, we can't find what happened here.
Well,
It
it's
would speak
also
to like them cleaning that up, so people again don't know who it was, why they were flying it, and get a better idea of like what they're looking for.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. They also I heard a story, saw a story about one landed in somebody's backyard, and they wrote it off as a commercial slash, or maybe it was more of a private drone. It wasn't one of these same kind of drones. So it's like, yeah, one crashed, but the one that you saw crash, it wasn't one of the ones we're looking for. It's not a drone that we're looking for.
It's the Star Wars thing. These are not the droids you're looking for. These aren't the droids I'm looking for.
Yeah, these are not the drones you're looking for. You can go on your way. Move along. JB played that in their Discord the other day. I watched it. It's always good to watch them Star
It's
Wars
funny.
movies. I love it.
It
But
is a good movie.
here's Donald Trump's response.
Can you comment on the drones that are flying around New Jersey ports? It seems like the American people have a big disconnect.
The government knows what is happening. Look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out. Even if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people, and they should, because the people are really, I mean, they happen to be over Bedminster. Want to know the truth.
Can you comment on the
And then, as it pertains to that story right there, Donald Trump has a home in Bedminster apparently, and he says that he's not likely. This is from earlier today. That he's not likely, or he likely won't go home to his Bedminster residence or whatever due to the reported drone sightings. So, it's enough for him to say, you know what, I'll stay in Mar-a-Lago. I can golf here or whatever it is that he's going to do.
Yeah, let me not do that. I just wanted to say too, put that Discord link somewhere in our Discord so I can go join it, Chris.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have access to a link to it, but I will join it.
For some reason, I thought I saw that you did a while back, but yeah, you definitely should join over there. And by the way, we have a Discord link down in the description. We'd love to see you guys there. We have some good conversations. We even get into some actual voice calls and talk and stuff like that. But Just Me said, good, Trump needs to stay away from the drones. Yeah, for sure. He needs to stay as safe as possible. And if they pose any kind of threat, if we don't know what it is, yes, he needs to stay his ass away from the drones.
Yeah.
So we got 2 minutes left. I have a couple one-offs for you we'll get into real quick.
Well, the one thing that makes me think it's like real, right? It's like if this was a false flag intended to get people to kind of like panic and like fear and kind of build that sentiment of like, oh, we definitely need to go to war with Russia. I feel like they would be overtly over the top with like, we have to send out thousands of drones because we don't know what Russia put on our border over here in Jersey. The fact that they're being completely silent speaks to them like, they're like, oh, dude, like, this has to be settled immediately, as fast as possible and as quietly as possible. Someone asks, don't even answer. Pretend you're dumb. Like, just don't give any answers. Say, yeah, this is definitely not happening.
Right. Yeah. Chris, I'm not sure if you guys did, but if you do, that'd be cool. And for those who don't know, Chris also has a channel. It goes the same name as you see here on the screen, Chris Stockham, and he goes live pretty much daily. And we're in this for promoting each other, helping each other out. If we don't help each other out, who will? And so yeah, go check Chris out as well. TNT said if Secret Service can't hit a target 5 feet away, well, they never they would never hit a drone.
They're real.
That's pretty funny. So we'll save the one-offs for the next show. We'll just go ahead and wrap this one up. You can find me over on, if you're on X, I am at Worrell. Let me pull up my profile. I'm at Worrell over here on X. Make sure you guys give me a follow. if you're watching on X, please repost this. Help us reach a better, bigger audience. We have some more guests in store for you guys coming up. Hopefully this month. We're getting down to the second half of December, which is holiday family time. So we'll see. But hopefully, if we don't, so not even hopefully, if we don't get them on the rest of this month sometime, we'll start off next year strong. But you can find me on X. I'm Worrell. And then let's see. This is where you can find Atlas Thugged as well over on X. Atlas_Thugged. I had on the screen, so I remember this time. I didn't have to remember, but
I would put in
I'm
the little thing on
right.
on StreamYard.
right. I'm also you maybe should do that. Oh yeah, it is on there. Atlas_Thugged. I'm also America First TV over on YouTube. I'd love to see you guys support me over there. Atlas is Atlas Thugged on YouTube, and he's chasing 1,000 subs. It's a big stepping stone. I always forget the name of the word. It's a goal.
Monetization. I'll start getting probably what's the word? Higher up or higher ranked in like algorithms too.
Yeah, so
as well.
We can get him I think he's about 90, maybe 85 subs away. If we can get him over that 1,000 mark, that'd mean a lot to us. And milestone. Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't say milestone. Like I've been drawing blanks on certain words today. Just I'm not in it. I'm ready for the holidays to be here and just my mind is going on vacation. Milestone. Yeah, thank you, Angry Yeti. But we also, like we mentioned, we have the Discord. The link is in the description. Love to see you guys join over there. And I don't know. I think that pretty much covers it all, right? I mean,
yeah. I
else?
was going to say too, just add to that, Christ is King. Big thanks once again to Amol for coming on and giving his opinion as well.
Yeah.
I know that's like specifically that topic's one that there's a lot of disagreement over how to handle, especially when it comes to economic systems, as well as just, is healthcare human right, all that stuff. And so I just think too, I would like to actually explore a bit more, possibly like debate kind of like ideals, right? Like getting more people on here who might not agree with us entirely. Exploring things like that as well. Probably invites, we'll invite more insight into the whole situation to see both sides kind of explored.
Yeah, maybe I'll shoot some messages to old woke Destiny and see if he wants to come on and I don't know about that, to be honest with you. Actually, it'd probably honestly be entertaining and fun, but maybe we can get some more left leaning opinions. I do know a couple people that might be willing to come on and debate and just have a healthy, happy conversation. Give a little bit more of broader spectrum of ideas and stuff like that. I'm all for the American free speech, letting the better ideas rise at the top and the worse ideas fall to the bottom and be crushed. So that's how we learn. That's how we get better. That's how we grow. But anyways, other than that, as you said, Christ is King. If we don't see you guys in the next couple streams, because I did confirm I won't be on the Monday before Christmas. We got a dinner theater thing, and that is that night. So you might want to run the show yourself, or maybe we'll just take that Monday and Tuesday or Monday and Wednesday off, because Wednesday I believe is Christmas. But we'll be okay. So but we will be running Wednesday and Saturday this week, both at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Look forward to seeing you guys there. Thank you to all the people who've been coming back. Personally, I have so much fun seeing new faces come back the next week and engage in the conversation. It's really fun for me to see the channel grow and to see the community grow and all that stuff. So anyways, but if we don't see you guys the rest of this week for whatever reason, I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And thanks for the birthday wishes as well. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Happy birthday once again. All right. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.
With war rolling at us dog, we here to bring the truth. Jar open this podcast, we breaking through the fake news. They try to silence us, but we will be subdued. We're bearded alpha males here to save the youth. Spitting fire on the mic with the bass Christian takes. Exposing the lies, keeping the demons at bay. We ain't afraid to speak up, we won't be swayed. Jar open this podcast, where the truth is laid. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas up, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. We ain't playing games, we're on a mission to awaken the masses with our intuition. Pulling out the corruption with no inhibition. Jar open this podcast, sparking a revolution. We're not afraid to stand tall in a world full of deceit. We're the voice of reason, bringing light to the street. Keeping it real, never missing a beat. Jar openers podcast, where the truth meets the heat. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas up, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. Jar open this podcast, where the truth will never cease. Join us on the journey to bring back peace. We're rolling Atlas thugged, fearless in our release. Jar open this podcast, where the lies will decrease.